I was gonna say I thought that you had enough punches on your punch card for us to be nice to you. So, great job,
Michael,
GMing
you did
this
such a
was
good
great.
job.
Hold up. Wait, can I give
Don't-
us an
don't-
intro?
don't
Can I give
click.
us an intro? And then we can compliment Michael.
Okay.
Let's get started.
Let's do the intro.
I don't know why I was doing that. I'm sorry. Okay.
You're like
Clean start.
Clean start.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Read Play Game, where we look at tabletop role-playing games from every side of the table. I'm the rules lawyer.
I'm Emma. I played. My name was Al in the game for Jamais.
I'm Anish, and it turns out I was Desmond Michaels.
I'm Tori, and I did finally remember that I was playing Braxton.
I'm Michael, and I was the GM.
Woo!
Yay! And what a great job you did, Michael. That was so fun.
Oh,
Sounds so genuine.
No, genuine.
I'm serious. It was great. This is it seemed like a kind of tricky game to GM, and it was very fun to play.
Yeah, you had that uphill battle because I think this game demands a lot from the GM in terms of improv and flexibility because, like, the mystery could truly be anything, and you maybe had an idea of what that was, but because we are who we are, we probably we probably swung
DJ
things in a different direction. So for one,
serious.
y'all happy? Y'all done?
It's 11:12 p.m.
It's 11:12.
I'm sorry. Michael
wait.
had the uphill battle.
Yes,
It's
Michael.
always gonna be an uphill battle. And I'm done.
Michael looks so
Mute
pissed.
yourself.
No, sorry. I was
Get
trying
through
to
one
figure out
sentence
He's a
complimenting
7-year-old,
Michael.
and someone just came into his birthday and ate the first slice of cake.
No, sorry. My audio was like really fucking
Finish
up.
a sentence complimenting Michael challenge. Impossible. Without singing.
We need to give the man his kudos.
So true.
Michael, I was not part of it, but I was so engrossed in the world by all of the descriptive imagery and words you were saying. I was really, really impressed.
Also, incredible, like, the way that you balanced the tone of the moment being so freaking scary with the Harris Teeter dragon voice. Like, it was so like
Crazy.
That was
like,
terrifying.
it was very funny and at the same time so viscerally scary. Like,
And-
I was terrified.
Which is why you are such a good GM when we play Call of Cthulhu as well. Like, you do scary extremely well, and those moments were awesome. But just a huge collective sorry for everything we've put you through in terms of surprises, but also thanks for running the game. How was it for you?
Aw, thank y'all. No, it was a lot of fun. It was it's interesting because it was like before the game, I kind of came up with and what we talked about in the behind the screen or whatever. Pretty much all I came up with was characters and locations and a general idea of the mystery, but I didn't really have a clear idea of I was gonna try to come up with the basic plot behind everything. But I think one of the fun things of this game is like that the mystery is kind of solved by y'all and like it's a collective thing. And so I kind of just let that develop.
Yeah.
Yeah, agree.
Who did it? Who did it?
Also, I don't think we said this at the top of the episode. This is the game episode for Jamais. In case you didn't know and you were listening, thanks for joining us. We had a great time.
I'm
ahead,
having
Michael.
Jamais
Whodunit?
of the. So honestly, my like going into it, I didn't have like a super clear like thought out like, oh, this is like how everything connects like together. Like let me look at my sheet because I had this like whole thing I wrote up. Like I don't think I had like a clear like who did it. I had more like my initial thought was like, oh, like the whole premise is like it's like this like I had a cult idea thought going into it. The idea of like the town being made like an omega, like the end is an I had no fucking clue how I was gonna conclude that. I was just like, oh, that's a fun like phrase. And then I don't know what it was that made me think about it, but I was like, when we because I was like, oh, I think it'd be a fun idea to have I was like, I feel like it'd be funny if like Desmond has like lives in the carnival. And then I was like, what if there's a photo of the town? And then I kept thinking of the photo and I was like, oh, what if the town is shaped in a symbol that looks like this? And so that's kind of where that came from. And that's like that. So that was like kind of just came through. So like you, Anish, and like all of that. But my initial thoughts was it was kind of like a like there was a cult trying to prevent someone from reshaping the land
Yeah.
and like changing the way it looked. But I didn't but like the omega, like the style of that was not something I had thought of. Um
That's an
and
omega.
yeah, and then besides that, in terms of the people, some of the stuff changed. Like I did not like Natalia. I did not have like any real connection with the Indio planned originally. That just like kind of when y'all started interacting with her, it was like, oh, I want to check if she's lying. That's where it kind of like came to my mind. I was like, oh, this could be
That's so fun.
an interesting progression with that. I also originally did not have any plan for like the dragon being something that could talk.
Mhm.
That's
I did,
nuts.
that wasn't even like a thing I like had as an idea. Like I didn't even like I was just like, oh, it'd be funny if there's like a character like a dragon like that says like, oh, you have to be this tall to ride. And I wanted there to be some like some like what's it called? Existential like creature or something like haunting the carnival. And I was like, oh, I think that'd be fun. So that's kind of where that came from. I was gonna do it like some kind of like Zoltar like like like
Oh,
like thing, but then I was like, oh, I think this would be a lot more fun.
the hair-seated
Very
dragon.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was so scary.
Aside from that, I don't know. I don't think I had no like you being a character that like worked with the company was not something I anticipated at all. So I think the like you, Emma, being like thinking that like you had like killed this person, like done all this stuff, that was really fun. And I think that
So funny.
that honestly I think influenced a lot of the ways I like thought about the story and like changed a lot of the stuff I was planning. And then also like but yeah, no, I think all of the ways that y'all did the stuff, because I what I wanted to do was I was trying to like figure out how to um like tie each location into like the characters and like all of that stuff, and like significant moments for each person in each spot. But yeah, I don't know. Besides that, I have this whole like long sheet that I had with all of the locations and like the parts of the mystery and stuff. But there's a lot of stuff we didn't even get to. Like if y'all had gone to the Indio office, there was
Oh.
going to be like carnival tickets, like in the office, like old carnival tickets. I had the runes like on Alexi / foaming. I guess there was never really an opportunity for y'all to like talk to people who had seen the crime scene. Um, although that also changed. Oh, and I was also going to have there be something like Alexi, like if you had gone to his office, you would have found like he had like heartburn pills or like a medication that he took. So like
Oh
maybe
yeah, because he
someone
was
could have poisoned him.
probably poisoned.
Yeah. But most of
Yeah.
the stuff I honestly like once we
The
like
foaming at the
really
end,
got
yeah.
into it, I like I had some stuff set up, but once we like honestly got into the game, it was just like working with y'all to kind of come up with all of the stuff. And that I think was fun to just kind of discover it together.
This is a truly collaborative game. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just judging from the fact that it can be played alone or without a GM too, like it really needs to be a game that is driven by the players constantly contributing ideas in addition to GM, oracles, whatever you're using.
I feel tripped me up a little, again, being somebody who's more on the player side than like a GM side. because I found myself being like, and here's the answer I'm looking for. What is it? Instead of like offering something myself, because I just wasn't, it never quite settled in for me, that mindset that I'm creating the world just as much as you are. And I think I played ball a little bit in terms of like arguing, can it be this different mechanic? Or like, here's how I think that transpires. But in terms of, I remember the first question you asked was like, well, where were you coming from? I was like, you tell me. I don't know. I was like, it was literally that poster of the frog where it's like, there was homework. Like, like I have to come up with it. So that did take me a little bit. I was very excited to be with like Emma and Anish and both of y'all. I thought felt very comfortable like making your own assertions, and especially in terms of hunches. Like I don't know. I just didn't feel confident enough to be like, okay, this is how it went down. I would have been, yeah, the game would have been a lot longer if it was just me.
Well, that's so interesting. Is like I would have really been interested to see what this would have looked like if we had done it in a GM-less way, which we could have.
Yeah.
Certainly. I don't know how many players you could do that with. It might be more like 2 or 3, but I feel like that would have also been a very interesting way to do it, and I wonder how different it would have been, because Michael did a lot of good prep, so it would have been a lot more like on the fly stuff. Like even if your stuff was mostly like locations and NPCs, like that's a really really good asset to have.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because I was like, originally I had a plan where I was like, oh, I'm gonna go and like make all of the story and like all of these things. But I think once we got started, mostly it was just like bones and structure, just so it'd be easier for me to be like, these are names of characters. These are like the places and like stuff that they could potentially find there. Um, but I liked how collaborative it was. And I think it really helped me come up with like ideas for stories and like ideas for like things when it was like y'all had made your characters that I didn't know about before, and then kind of shaping it around the stuff that y'all had in mind, like all of the drugs and stuff with you and Ish. It's fun to work with.
I have a question for the whole group. Did over the course of playing, did we find a skill in particular that we really loved interacting with out of the 16, I think, total skills? I don't remember how many. There's a lot of them.
I think drama was a late contender that I was wishing that I had been using the whole time. Like I was like, oh, I should have rolled for drama at the old lady store. Maybe she's lying. Like I should have been checking if everybody was lying. But that one was really fun at the end.
Mine for sure. And like you can tell by every single interaction I'm interjecting with or just pushing forward. Inland Empire is
fun.
The most fun skill in the game and in this game. Disco Elysium has some incredible dialogue that goes with the Inland Empire moments. And I think that really steered the direction that my character went for sure. And I regret putting 0 points in it because those were the most fun moments. And like Michael, every time you made the world weirder, it was just so fucking fun.
Yeah, that was one of the things I really wanted to lean into with this session, because I love Inland Empire in the game as well. The one thing, like I really liked the way this system was set up. Like I thought it was really fun and interesting. The one thing I don't think I ever really got a full grasp on was the interjections, mostly because I wonder, like with rolling, like if you have 0, like if you resist, you automatically beat it, which I guess makes sense. But I also feel like I wonder if it would be better if there was like a baseline, like 5 or something.
Well, I think the point is that you're more like I think one thing that I wanted to mention toward the end of when we were playing, but I kind of figured it was too late because we'd already been playing a decent amount. And I think we actually did it more in the first session. Was that's very much you only really want to be challenging people's highest
like
skills.
Yeah,
so something to keep in mind is the ones that they're most susceptible to, because like certainly in Disco Elysium, those are the ones that are most likely to pop up in your head.
Yeah.
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 It's
No,
like
I
if
get that.
you
Yeah.
yeah.
And I guess, yeah, no, it makes sense. It was just like that kind of thing, like took me a minute to like wrap my head around.
I think that's also something that's much more probably significant and more present in. I was reading some of the example play for a GM-less game where it's like really encouraging you as players to challenge your other co-players in place of a DM doing it.
Yeah.
It's much more gives you the image of a GM
I
force.
Right.
like the token mechanic.
Mm,
Like
yep.
that very similar to masks with influence. Like I like a thing that is shared among players and moves between them, as it feels like a very natural like turn sharing mechanic versus something more structured like initiative order. Like we want everyone to get these moments, so you literally give them to people if you want to expect to get them back. I think that's neat.
Yeah, and then someone with all of them has to do it because
Yeah.
everyone else has 0.
Tori, did you have a favorite skill?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, that's literally what I was gonna say. Was we talked some about the handbook and AI being used to make art. For me, truly, the like artwork in the handbook is the description of the skills. Each one is
Mm.
so specific and has that positive. If you're good at it, here's this, and then that negative. But here's the flip side, and it just feels so fleshed out and imaginative. And what drew me to volition as that willpower one was how they laid it out in the skills page. But honestly, my surprise favorite that kind of came out was the teamwork, esprit de corps.
Esprit de
Truly.
corps, so true.
Truly, because I feel like both Al and Desmond came in with like, what the fuck's happening? My face is bloody. Who are you? And so it ended up, I think, coming into play a lot more in terms of us becoming a team, and especially coming off of Louis, who was like, that coming of age, like individualism, who am I, whatever. It was fun to be somebody who's more like, come on, guys, we can do it.
Yeah.
Like I'll just read you this little excerpt. This is your teamwork skill, the one that connects you to your colleagues. But, yada, yada. The risky part, it tends to dilute the self into the faceless institutional soup, like the ant that relinquishes its individuality to benefit of the colony.
Wow.
Oh, like that'll
Yeah.
stay with me, you know? So that
That's
honestly stood
yeah.
out to me. Was just when that first, read episode, I was like, these are gorgeous descriptions.
Yeah, it's very in line with the text of Disco Elysium itself. Disco Elysium has very sort of
Evocative.
just the language it uses. It has a very specific way of talking, and I've noticed that a lot of Disco Elysium fans talk a lot like that too.
Do they pull it off, or is it cringe?
It's pulled off generally from what I mean. Clearly in this one, I think the author captured it very, very well. I've also, I've been in their Discord server for this, and I see some of the debates and conversations happening in it, and it feels like I'm in the game. The way people are interacting, it's a very specific, and the people that
eloquent but accessible. They're not using these like lofty words just cause. It's like, oh, I do understand an ant. You know what I mean? Like, thank you for bringing that to my level.
Yeah. And the game is designed by very like the Disco Elysium. I'm not as familiar with it, but I've seen a lot of people talking about the like theory and stuff behind it. It's a very, very, what's the word?
Marxian.
Is that the word?
Kafka-esque.
I mean, there's a lot of like conversations about like communism and stuff, obviously, in it.
Yeah, I mean, in their acceptance speech for like best narrative, like game narrative, they thanked like Marx and Engels, I think, or whoever it was.
What? Really? Like their like philosophies?
Yeah. So
surely it wasn't made while they were alive.
No.
Okay. Sorry.
No. They just said, "Oh, thank you for the knowledge."
They just shouted them out. Tell me, Anish. I know you had a succinct thought before I.
And it's gone.
The iPad brain kicked in.
Speaking of thoughts, I wanted to discuss the thoughts mechanic.
Yes.
Because I think that was a very new mechanic. I really like the Oracle aspect of it. But that was one that I think took me a second to get a grasp on. With my first thought, well, I think it was more I didn't really understand what they were because
If someone asked me what
who is playing?
Michael, you're
watching
sharing
Michael,
your
you're
screen.
sharing your audio.
Sorry, I
bully you
apologize.
for a fucking-
I was
so
looking up
many
the
fucking
Disco
bully-
Elysium award thing.
Imagine,
Apologies.
imagine we just started hearing Family Guy funny moments.
Sorry, I was looking up the
Subway
Disco Elysium
Surfer.
award moment. I apologize.
Long
Am I
egg.
the
Game
asshole?
discussion.
My like 28 female. Okay, the thoughts. The first one, I really like getting a juicy thought is so fun. And going from the first thought that I had, which was, am I guilty? Where I was like, the only really satisfying answer for me for this is yes. And then being like, well, that's not how the game works. Let me rethink how I'm thinking about thoughts. Let me tell you, that role for are they with me or against me drastically was going to change how that was going to go for y'all. Drastically. It would have gone very different if I had decided that y'all were against me.
Yeah.
I love this because I'm going to gush about the mechanics a little bit. It's just like, it's so cool how the truth can be shaped by the roles. So like, and it's so left to your whims like that because it is you come up with an argument and then you roll to see if it's true. It reminds me of another game that I love called Paradise Killer.
Yeah.
I've talked about this game a lot, but it's like a
Video game.
It's a video game. Yeah, it's like it's an investigation game that seems inspired by stuff like, I don't know, Ace Attorney, Danganronpa. Like it's very like flashy and it's like vaporwave style, and all the characters are like super like sexy or whatever. But what's real, and they're like also like dead gods, and it's like really lofty. I have like 4 posters of it in my room alone. I'm obsessed with this piece of media. But it's about you're an investigator investigating a murder, but pretty much everyone on the island, like you're on an island investigating a single murder the whole time, going around gathering clues, connecting them based on different conversations and like refuting stuff. And then the game ends. You can start this at any time. You can end the game whenever you want by starting the trial. And depending on how much evidence you have, anything can be true. Like you can accuse anybody as long as you have, and pretty much like you can come up with anything, because you're going to learn if you especially if you get all the pieces of evidence. You don't have to get all the pieces of evidence to finish the game. As you get more evidence, you learn the truth, like what you think is the truth, and you realize maybe I don't like the truth. Like maybe my best friend character actually helped with the murder, and I don't want them to get executed for it, because each character that's involved in a crime is killed. And so you, when you're presenting your argument, can use evidence to implicate other people, and you can shape the ending how you want it to be based on who you want to be guilty. And the core like phrase that the main character says throughout the whole game so many times is, the facts and the truth are not the same. And I just love that. To me, that is also encapsulated in this game, except the truth is also like the truth is determined by the role. And it's also kind of, you get to set what the truth is. And I really think that is so cool.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I love investigation, like detective games.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is a really fun way to do it.
And it's no surprise that this game being influenced by a video game might evoke similar things, because they're working on the same like principles game design wise. How can we lay out clues in a way to make the players engaged? But the thing that makes this game even harder is that whether you're playing by yourself or playing with a GM or just a group of people, y'all have to do that from the ground up, generatively. It's a tall order, and I think I would recommend this game to people who have played Disco Elysium 100%. But if you have not played Disco Elysium and nobody in your group has played Disco Elysium, it's kind of a different story, to be honest, because there's so much about the original game that kind of influences the way that you tell the story, and you are influenced, especially by the core message that Disco Elysium was trying to convey, the values it was steeped in. And I know, Michael, you did that, I think, a justice in this narrative. I'm curious for Emma and Tori, having not played the video game, what was your kind of vibe of the game? Because a lot of the mechanics very much are similar. All the skills are
Like one to
one to
one. Yeah.
one.
Why don't you speak first? Because I also know you're very well versed in just like mystery as a genre.
Sure. I would say very well versed in mystery as a genre, very poorly versed in video games. Um, although I have played a ton of Ace Attorney. Um, that is the one that I'm like, yeah. Video games make me sick physically. Um,
Just hates
I
the
think
concept.
no,
Because
like
it's like a
like
motion
it makes me
thing.
throw up. Yeah,
Like it's
Like,
screen. Don't
People who
gamers,
played-
we're with you.
gamers don't
Gamers are
hate me.
disgusting.
I wish I could play video games. Oh, heartbreaks. I loved, loved that it worked in the mechanics of the game. And from what I can understand, it would work in the video game too. That me being the culprit was a real possibility. Like that felt like something that was possible and looming and scary. Um, I thought that was really interesting. I think it's nice. Well, nice is probably the wrong word. It's always really, really fun when you get to play nasty people who are messed up and like confused and just trying to scrape by. Like and I'm going to talk about that thought again of are you with me or are you against me that I was having, cuz there was a good portion of the game where I was going to frame Desmond. Like that was the goal. I was just trying to like arrange that. Like that was what the conclusions I was drawing was that I did it, but no, Desmond is the one who quote unquote did it so that I could push that on him. Um and that went all the way away when it was no, they're with me. And that's when I decided to loop y'all in. So like the idea that it can be that nebulous and you can find your way through it is really, really fun. I also like the mechanic at the very end where you have to put your hunches together. And my understanding is that if one of your hunches doesn't work, you just leave that one out and you don't roll that hunch. But you have to put your hunches together. But the DM or I think other players can tell you if something doesn't match the vibe. Like they can't say no, that doesn't make sense, but they can say like that's too silly for this vibe. You know, like that doesn't match the world that we're making. That would leave me with an answer that would be dissatisfying. Whereas it can be out there and it cannot be what they were expecting, but as long as it is structurally sound, it can make it through. And I think that's a really cool way of keeping it open, but keeping it grounded.
Agree. I really liked that note where it's like the GM can veto this if it's either too lazy or too crazy to exist.
Yeah.
It was also a huge deal for me that you ended up rolling that we are on your side because I did not want to try to have to figure this shit out without you or with you working against us. Because as previously mentioned, Emma is just like really well versed in mystery and like the different twists and turns that are possible. Versus like for me, when we were doing masks and I literally know what's going to happen, I was like, what? Like, really? Like, um, so whereas you're more like comfortable and adept in the mystery genre, I'm definitely more in the video game genre. But I gotta tell you, I don't think I played a mystery video game since like I Spy. You know what I mean? When those click
Mm,
and point ones, and there was like a
Pop
skeleton or whatever.
Tropica.
Pop Tropica, probably. So truly, and I had a mishap where I misplaced my sheet and I really spiraled about it. So that definitely is part of it. But it didn't quite, maybe if I kept playing, I would understand it more. Be it But for me, the best part was just role playing with my friends. Yeah, the open-ended, any possibility of it ended up being a bit more daunting to me as opposed to like liberating or something.
Mm.
Well, that's the interesting thing about this being a tabletop role playing game versus a video game. Because even in the case of the video game, I think there's probably, okay, I guess I can't speak on this because I haven't finished the game, but like I feel like there's still probably one main truth of the story that you could just discover different aspects of in your different playthroughs. Maybe that's not true.
Yeah, I
There's
still
a
But
haven't
main.
finished.
There's like, yeah, I won't spoil anything, but
well, even with the game that I was just talking about, Paradise Killer, like that game, there is a truth. It's just you who gets to
Oh,
decide whether or not you like it, or
that
like
is
whether or not
interesting.
like
How
you
you
whatever.
present the truth.
Which is interesting because I would say, Tori, you actually do have a decent amount of experience with at least a similar game to this, being Baldur's Gate 3, which I would
Oh,
say is one of the other big like tabletop role playing translated to a video game thing. But that is what's so different about that is that even in that context, I feel like there is still defined limits of what can happen
Yeah.
because
right.
it's a video game.
And I do think there's something to be said for a mystery game. Like what a lot of people want out of a mystery game is to solve the mystery. And I think that is a reasonable want, to like know that there's a right answer that you can get to. And so having it this open-ended is really delicious for me. That's fun. Because then it's like, well, shit, how am I gonna get the rest of these hunches to work together when I created my bulletin board and connected all these red strings and now I have to rearrange them. So like seeing how you can rearrange the evidence is really fun to me. But it puts I want to say a burden on the players that can either be a welcome burden or can feel like, like, oh, it's just different ways of playing games.
Yeah.
It's kind of like writing a mystery as opposed to solving it
Yeah.
sometimes.
And we're all co-authors in it together. So it's the added pressure along with this sort of open-ended freedom that's very different than the video game. The video game, you're excited to play in the room and kind of poke at things and see what happens. And in this RPG, you're kind of poking at things and then narrating what happens. It's kind of like you have authorship in what happens, which is really interesting. For somebody who has played Disco Elysium and hasn't finished, I think my experience playing was definitely different because I walked in and mentally I was playing like the Revachol music as you're walking around. Like it's the creators of Disco Elysium put in so much effort in their product that they've made something so completely distinct. Um, and what's cool about this game is it kind of breaks apart the mechanics and gives it to you to play with. Um, and I think Michael, you did a really good job kind of capturing Revachol in this city in a distinct way, but like different parts of town that are seeped in these like kind of broken down vibes as opposed to really high end buildings like glass windows overlooking dilapidated areas. It's like these contrasts is created. It's really nice and it creates a really stark image in my brain. So for people who are playing this game, they're gonna come with that knowledge of Disco Elysium and what it's like. And the language in the game is really flowery and also easy to digest. They're very evocative. So even if you don't know the game like Tori, you kind of get a sense of what the skills are like. So I think the game holds well on its own, and it's a good love letter to the original game.
And I think what it also evokes from the original game that was really cool to me was when I played the game. I think I might have mentioned this, but I've technically played it like attempted to start it twice. The first time I started it, I picked because you can pick build your character however you want, but they've got like recommended preset builds that you could use. I think one based like primarily on physical skills, and then one is based on like intelligence skills, and then one is based more being in tune with like Inland Empire and sort of bizarre stuff. And I initially started with the Inland Empire thing, which, to be honest, I don't think is the best one to start on your first playthrough, because I was so bad at the physical and like intelligence stuff that I was learning nothing. I was just kind of having like, my character was just in kind of like a drunken stupor the whole time, just like having these really like, just
What could that be like?
random thoughts. And it was just like, I started a playthrough later, much later, actually, with the intelligence one, and I was like, it's crazy that this is two entirely different games. Like, I'm playing the same game. It's just, you can, it's this, like I said, like Paradise Killer has one, I don't know if it has like one big branching narrative, and this probably may or may not have that same like one narrative that is true about it, but depending on what skills you choose, that narrative is different to you because you discover different information.
My big thing, the way I like talking about Disco Elysium, is it's very much a lot of different RPGs, CRPGs. You change the world around you, and there is some element of that in Disco Elysium. But the way Disco Elysium works is you change how the world reacts to you and how you react to the world. Because it's like you're just a normal guy, like you don't really like have a great impact on this like world, and like that's basically the way the entire narrative works. Like there's a lot of like really really beautiful imagery. Like for instance, if you join the communists and go to their secret meeting, there's like this beautiful moment where you create a massive like stack of cards, and if you hit this impossible like roll and succeed, like it hangs there for like a moment, just like beautifully. Like there's some really great imagery, but it's like my first playthrough I had like maxed out on like the Inland Empire empathy, but then also like, because it's like I think the max you can have is 5 and the lowest you can have is 1. So I think I had 5 Inland Empire, 4 on intellect, and then like 2 physical, and then like 1 like whatever, which was really interesting. But then I played it again with like high physical, high like dexterity, and it was totally different. Just like you're walking around and the pop-ups, like the interjections that the game like gives you are just totally different.
Yeah,
like
the
ones,
thoughts and stuff, and
the voices talking to you in your head are all completely different. So it's really interesting.
And I thought this game captured what you were talking about very well, like the tabletop game, because I thought, and this kind of ties into what Emma and Tori were both saying, because I think that it raises the stakes in a way that you don't see in tabletop role playing games a lot. Because I feel like what Disco Elysium is to other video games, this tabletop role playing game is to other tabletop role playing games. In that the difference between a tabletop role playing game and other forms of media, like a movie or even a game or like a book or whatever, is that they elevate the narrative fiction and add the aspect of what can I do. So like now I can interact with this world and it can change. And so that's kind of, I think, really cool, especially for first time players, where it's like, I have agency, I'm able to interact and change things. But what this game does is it takes that and raises it even further to say, not only what can I do, but what can happen, what will happen, because anything can happen. Like in tabletop role playing games, it does feel like anything can happen because you have another person that's at the table, like deciding things. But like truly, even more than that in this case, because you are also creating it. Anything can happen. And I think that's what was so scary about Emma's role, where it was like, is Al going to trust these people or not trust these people? Because that changed the truth of the world in a way you really don't see. And like, because like in D&D, it does feel like I'd be interested to think of what you thought of this compared to something like Baldur's Gate 3, Tori, because D&D, like there is sort of that objective truth and that world that you are interacting with versus the world being so malleable in this case.
I'll tell you what, if the role had gone differently and Emma was going to be like counter working against us, I would have been mad. Whether it's valid or not, I don't know.
No,
but
here's the thing. I would have been working with you though. I was
It's
gonna
just-
be a spirit decoring you every other fucking turn, being like, isn't it crazy how Desmond is hiding things from us? Like that doesn't seem very spirit of the team. That doesn't seem very friendly.
I'm completely fine with this.
It's like I don't, it's not necessarily confirmation bias, but it's something like that where I'm just like, we're all the players, we work together, and the fact that that's not a hard and fast rule was a little like,
Oh, that's fun.
like
I think we're gonna have a lot of fun with some games in the future then, because
I love
100%.
PvP.
I love
Same.
one of my favorite things in games is pushing people's buttons, and also in real life. Hence my relationship with Michael
Click,
Smart.
click.
Really?
Click, click.
No.
Yeah, literally pushing the
You
button.
literally, yep.
I
Let's hear
don't.
it.
So that's the. Let me
Wait,
look at
can
this.
you do that again?
Oh, like this?
Oh wow. It just really reminds me of something. I don't know.
I don't know what it is. This is from
I'm getting
Teamworks.
angry.
This
for
is
some
Teamworks
reason.
Dog Training LLC. Thank you, Teamworks Dog. I use this to train my friends.
That's our first sponsor,
Our first
Teamworks
on
Yeah.
the
Dog.
show. Yes.
All we do on here is yap, yap, yap.
Exactly. All right, everybody focus.
Can you do that again?
Yeah, I can. We need to
Girl.
focus.
Girl.
My favorite mechanic was the interjections. All that to say, I love jumping in as a skill and like kind of coaxing somebody to like do something or explore something further. It's really cool, and in the game, it's fun to. That's probably the most fun part of the game. All the skills have its own personality, and to kind of step in that for a little bit, really fun.
I liked the gameplay around the role playing, like in terms of around like the way you think, like that kind of like helps inform like your characters like role play. I think that's fun. I like that aspect of it.
If I were to redo, like if we were to play this again, one thing I'd really lean into more is noting down which skills are my highest and leaning into the negative aspect of those skills. Like perception is I had a really high perception by the end, and perception's all about never having an off switch. Like you are always taking in information, and that's overwhelming. So like using that when describing how taking a negative on a roll to get XP, that's really, really fun, in my opinion.
I do wish there was, since it's so player led and so malleable, I do wish there was more of a help mechanic, something, because I feel like there's a lot of PvP built in that I love. That I wonder if there's a way to build out more of like, and here's what it happens when we work together on something.
And Disco Elysium never had multiplayer. It was
Yeah,
always
I was just
about
gonna say that's so interesting about the translation because so many of the mechanics are literal translations of the mechanics. So I'm curious as to what the modification would look like to do that.
yeah, because that's something I think the interjections kind of flavored, but like when I wanted to help you all out, it was all narrative, not mechanical.
Yeah.
And even in the case of interjections, narratively, when you do an interjection, it's not coming from you, another character. It's literally coming from that character's own mind.
Inside their
So,
brain.
yeah, it's an internal interaction.
Which that I think, not having played the game wasn't like I did that sometimes, but then sometimes I would literally interject as me and like whisper something to someone.
I think, like Anish was saying, it's much more intuitive to people who have played the game, I think, like that whole mechanic, because they're more acquainted with that. But a very fun time.
Cool.
If we have any, I just think it could be nice to include. I really enjoy the poem that's included at the start of the game.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I think during the play episode I thought about reading it, and I don't think I did. But if I did, listen
Here it is
again
again.
Yep.
with
Yeah.
newfound context from us playing the game. This is from Reflections by R.S. Thomas. The Furies are at home in the mirror. It is their address. Even in the clearest water, if deep enough, can drown. Never think to surprise them. Your face approaching ever so friendly is the white flag they ignore. There is no truce with the Furies. A mirror's temperature is always at 0. It is ice in the veins. Its camera is an X ray. It is a chalice held out to you in silent communion, where gaspingly you partake of a shifting identity, never your own. Whatever that means. But I do love there's something about including a poem, a multiple chunk poem at the start of a game, like, you know what I mean, manual, that
Yeah.
can really get down with. Like, even though the mechanics I didn't quite fully grasp, I think my favorite takeaways from this game are like the character I made was a lot of fun, and honestly just how the manual is put together. It really delighted me. I don't know.
I think that poem so well encapsulates the concept of Jamais, and I think playing this game and reading that just really like, because like everybody knows deja vu, but Jamais, like
It's derealization. It's like
yeah,
losing track of who you are and trying to pick up the pieces, looking at a reflection of yourself rippled in the water, scattered.
Trust
That does make more
which
sense now that y'all
trust
say that.
nobody, not
Yep.
even
not even
yourself.
yourself, which is what happened at the end with Braxton.
Yeah.
Y'all are gonna piss me
Like
off.
Braxton. It's
Jackson.
Braxton.
It's
It's
I
like
wasn't
Braxton.
paying
Jackson
attention.
with a brr, like a Cole
Sorry.
Jackson. Braxton.
Braxton.
For Jackson.
Braxton with Braxton's
Braxton Bramble.
whole I realize, here's what I think I am, and then it's like, oh, but you're not. There's something more.
Something deeper.
And we talked about how the failure almost made it more interesting.
It
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
It really did.
And I was very happy that you failed in the way that I was hoping that the mystery would resolve, because otherwise I feel like we would have had to cut you loose, you know? And I felt like you were a very important part of the team dynamic, especially because you were so team oriented, that like if you remembered who you were and you're besties with Natalia, and then I'm like, we gotta go hunt them down. Like we gotta kill them, that like, but knowing that like no, something's missing, there's still this unknown kind of tapped into that. Like I liked the idea of losing who you are and enjoying that.
Yeah.
I love the idea that it's not completely wrong just because you failed.
Mhm.
Like most of that could be true. There's just a piece you're missing, which is why the hunch, you lose one hunch. So like you still have most of the hunches you use to get this. It's just there's a piece of it that's wrong.
Yeah.
And so you can discover more, but you still have that base.
Yeah. And as we're kind of concluding things, can we revisit the rule book, the principles that are laid out? It's on page 10 of the basics.
Oh yeah.
I think everything we've talked about kind of go back to this, especially the failure.
Yeah, embracing failure.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about this, did
We
we?
didn't really talk about this, but I think it's kind of cool. I don't know if we want to read it out loud or just kind of quickly talk about them.
There's
I mean, we could
5 of
just,
us.
like-
Why don't we each read one?
Oh,
I'll read hardcore to the mega.
okay, I'll read fiction first. First principle, fiction first. You narrate what your character plausibly does, and only then do you worry about how the game's mechanics interact with the fiction. It's more fun and surprising if you don't try to play efficiently. We definitely got there at certain points, I think.
Principle 2, embrace failure. You're not the chosen one. You're a mediocre human being at best. You'll fail often, but this is great news. Failure provides plot twists, new challenges, fun, and drama. Success is so overrated. Duh.
Principle number 3, let it ride. You roll once for a thing. If you fail to pick a lock, this represents all your current efforts to pick that lock, and there's no point in keeping rolling. You won't be able to roll again for that task until the scene changes notably, your relevant skill improves, you acquire the right tool for the job, or an important condition has changed. Sometimes your action is irreversible and the opportunity is lost forever. This is life.
White checks versus red checks. Magical realism is the 4th one, which is portray the world focusing on the poetry in the mundane, find beauty in agony, chase the unfathomable divinity of the smallest things.
Like the Harris Teeter dragon.
And the final principle is hardcore to the mega. Whatever you do, turn it to 11. Overthink, overreact, overstep. Be bold, be brutal, be ballsy.
I think we did. I think we were bald.
But if
Oh, for
if
sure.
the 5 minutes of us talking about vomit was any indication, we were pretty brutal.
Thank you, listeners.
I also-
Thank you for sticking with us through that one.
Oh Lord.
I know, wait. And
Hardcore.
Hardcore.
I just want to say again, I feel like well, I don't know if I've said this on this podcast before, but the whole thing with when you roll and you fail, you have failed. Stop rolling for it. is so important to me. Like, I love that idea, and I think it plays really, really well into. And it is for me, it was a very hard thing to learn when running games. Of like, if you want something to happen, like if something needs to happen for the story, it can just happen.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't have to roll. If everyone is gonna be like, damn, what do we do now? And there's no, like, it can just happen. Failures should really be failures, because just rolling over and over, it kills me.
And that's one of the things that they talk about later in the when they're talking about like when to roll. It's like,
Yeah,
roll only when it would be interesting to get different results. Like, that's when you do it.
Wow, that sure was an invigorating conversation. And I can't wait to maybe talk about it more with an interview with the creator, which we hope to have coming out soon. But also on the horizon, let's roll for whatever game we read, play, and game next.
yes, go Michael.
All right, Michael, take it away.
I got a 10 or a 0-0, which is a 10. So, Exquisite Biome by Caro Assertion.
Woo!
Exciting.
I'm
All right.
excited.
Let's
What
see
is
you
it?
on a what?
What style of game is that? Is that a world building?
I don't
game?
know. We'll find out on
Yay!
the see you on
That's
the
a
next
mystery.
other side of a different table.
A whole different table.
Whole
Don't
different
come back to
table.
this
An
one.
entirely
Drop
different
it. Get rid of
table.
it. All right, let's reset and
We'll
Can you
see
do that
you on
again?
a different side of the table.
No, a new table.
again.
Oh shit.
We might
We'll
see you at this table again with the creator of the game, but most likely we'll see you at an entirely different table.
I mean, but we probably will
Tori,
see them
let's
at this
go.
table
Tori's
Alright.
gonna
because
bite. Tori's gonna
we
bite
might-
someone
All right, we're
soon.
done, y'all. We're done. We're done. Good job.